Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today we are reading His Reasons. It's a Todoroki X-Rater fanfiction by AshleyH713. Obviously this is the second video I'm recording today, but you'll see by the timestamps. Yeah. I want to try and get a whole lot of this done before shit hits the fan. Yeah. So, now they have Season 2 chapters. So it's going to be Season 2, Chapter 1 through however many there was. I don't remember. I think it's 12. I don't know. Could be wrong. Let's begin. Season 2, Chapter 1. Staring at his sister for the first time in weeks, there were a variety of things he wanted to do and say to her. A short time ago, he thought he would never see her annoying, peppy smile ever again, and now it felt like some sort of miracle that he was getting another chance. His first instinct was to straight up yell at her and ask her why she had been so reckless in the first place. If she knew that using her quirk would kill her, then why had she pushed herself all this time? Amari was more reckless and stupid than he originally thought. Amari waved at him awkwardly, not really sure how to start the conversation. "Hey, Katsuki, how have you been?" At her words, he snapped out of his thoughts, just standing in utter shock, trying to process the situation. "What? How did you..." But she just laughed awkwardly in response. "Sorry about being gone for so long, but I'm good now. It really wasn't as bad as you think." Katsuki's mind flashed back to her body, her broken, cold body, and knew that wasn't the case. She was almost dead back there. He had felt it. "Bullshit, you were missing." His phrasing just seemed funny to her, already knowing that the doc had talked to her parents so they wouldn't worry. "Missing? What? No, I wasn't. I was just with some doctors from America. That's why it took so long." Her response brought unknowing warning bells in his head, but before he could call her out on them, Deku and the rest of the class walked in, also seeming surprised. "Amari-chan, you're back. Are you okay?" Amari's eyes directed back towards her classmates and smiled, purposefully avoiding eye contact with Todoroki. That was something she had to deal with later. "Hey everyone, yeah, I'm good as new. Sorry if I worried you." Toothless. Go to bed. Bakugo watched her interactions and wanted to say more, but found it hard when Deku and the rest of the class were watching the two of them. He couldn't say anything in front of them. So instead, in one motion, Katsuki stomped up to Amari with intent, now wrapping his hand around her arm firmly. "Katsuki?" Then he pulled her out of the classroom, making her drop her bag on the floor in the process. Amari thought he probably wanted to yell at her or something. That's usually how it went. The two turned a corner, and when Bakugo realized there was no one there, he let go, now strangely silent. Amari was confused at this, noticing his distant expression. "Katsuki, are you okay?" Balling his hands into a fist, Katsuki shook his head once. "How in the hell could I be okay? First you go out and almost get yourself killed, and then you go missing for 4 weeks? I told you to stop being so goddamn reckless." She wanted to touch his arm, but decided against it, knowing he would just shove it away probably. Instead, she settled for a sigh, trying to lighten the mood. "I already told you that I wasn't missing. And yeah, I did something kind of stupid, but it's okay. I'm fine now." Bakugo didn't like this response, though, only thinking about her unmoving in that hospital bed. How dare she say everything was okay when he was going absolutely mad. Feeling his feelings leak out, Katsuki then raised a fist and punched the wall behind him, just missing her head by a few inches. "Well, I'm not fine." Amari flinched at the impact. When she opened her eyes, she saw Katsuki looking at her with an expression she'd never seen from him before. He looked sad. "Katsuki?" His hands remained on the wall as her brother sighed in frustration. "You don't even know how I felt, brat. How could you say everything's fine?" Amari then froze when she felt his head flop onto her shoulder in utter defeat. He was exhausted and tired from worrying so much, and it was tearing him apart. She heard his voice under her shoulder, sounding of desperation and anxiety. "I thought you were dead, Amari. I thought I would never see you again." She processed his words, now feeling something creep up in her throat. This was the first time her brother had ever acted like this. "Wait, were you worried?" The phrase seemed foreign to her, like she would have never been able to see it from Katsuki. He always acted so cruel and nonchalant about everything she did. Bakugo looked up at her question, his hand still plastered to the wall. "Of course I was, you idiot. Why wouldn't I be when my dumbass sister does something like that? Next time, just let me die. It was my choice to go out there, not yours." The world stood still around her as one word stuck out in her mind. It didn't feel real. "You just called me your sister." Narrowing his eyes in confusion, Bakugo just scoffed. He didn't understand how much that meant to her. "Yeah? What about it?" Amari blinked a couple times, recalling his words back at the USJ attack. He was contradicting himself. "But you said that you never once thought of me as your sister." Bakugo remembered those words painfully well and froze. He had said them out of a moment of anger and frustration. Had she really taken them to heart like that? What else had she taken to heart then as well? It was all an answer he didn't want to know. Shaking his head, her brother sighed. "Forget that. I was pissed off then. How can I ignore the fact when you dive headfirst into stupid situations like me? It's pretty much impossible to say we aren't related at this point." Amari remained silent at this, not sure how to process his words. Did that mean it was okay to still think of herself as a Bakugo? Bakugo watched her in thought and couldn't help but remember what that icy hot bastard had told him back in the hospital. He needed to know the truth. "You know, that icy hot bastard said something before." At Todoroki's name, her eyes perked up, now slightly nervous. "What did he say?" Katsuki remained still for a moment, wondering how to exactly bring this up. If he just asked her if that bastard's words were true, then she would probably just lie and say everything was fine. No, he needed to figure this out himself. Shaking his head, her brother removed his hands from the wall before looking away. "Never mind, it's nothing." Mari just looked confused by this, now overly curious. "Wait, what do you mean?" But Bakugo was just over the conversation, his eyes looking back onto hers in frustration. "I said it's nothing. Just drop it already. It's not a big deal anyways." She stopped then, nodding her head slowly. It was obvious Katsuki didn't want to talk about it anymore. "Alright." Suddenly the bell rang above them, and Bakugo sighed, pulling his bag back over his shoulder silently. "Hurry up, it's time to go." He started to walk away from her, and Amari got the hint, just hurrying after him quickly. Okay." They then reached the classroom, but before Amari pulled open the door, her brother's words stopped her. They sounded small and uncertain. "Promise me you won't do that again." Her hand froze on the handle of the door, unsure if she was really hearing what he was saying. But before she could answer, he shoved her off the handle and pushed open the door himself, stomping into the classroom and leaving Amari confused. Class proceeded like normal, and when the bell rang, Amari knew she had to book it out of the classroom before Todoroki caught her and started asking strange questions. She heard the chime and right away started to pack up her things at a rapid pace before standing up from her desk. That's when she heard his voice. Amari, picking her bag off the table, she just put a silly hand to her hand and smiled. "Oh, hey Todoroki. Sorry, can't talk right now. I gotta go do that thing at that place at that time. You know, very important. Haha." Amari then turned on her heel and raced towards the exit. The small problem was that she miscalculated and slammed her foot right into the nearby desk, nearly falling on the floor and cursing. Holding her toe in pain, she felt an arm on her shoulder, looking rather concerned. "What are you doing?" She turned and froze, realizing the person that had asked her was the one she was trying to get away from in the first place. Todoroki. "Oh, nothing really." The class started to filter out, and when they were all gone, he decided it was okay to speak. "Are you avoiding me?" Shaking her head in anxiety, Amari laughed. What? No, of course not. Why would I ever do that? It's not like I'm nervous or anything like that. Realizing what she had just said, she cursed again, allowing him to question her words. Nervous? Amari sighed in defeat and realized there was no getting away from this conversation. Yeah, I mean, did you see me in a really embarrassing state? I mean, you did see me in a really embarrassing state, and, you know. Todoroki recalled the last couple of weeks and couldn't help but feel the same uncomfortable sensation in his stomach. Embarrassing was taking it lightly. This girl was on the verge of death just a while ago. Is that something you always have to go through? Shaking her head, Amari played with a strand of her hair. Todoroki now noticed a long scar in the place where the needle had touched her skin before. It used to be, but now I can go with just the pills. I told you that. You didn't want to know. She was completely right. He didn't want to know about this. It was making him crazy inside. You do all of that just to use your quirk. Smiling sadly, Amari answered, I have to. That's the only way I can be stronger. It's given me so many opportunities and hope. I know it's not ideal, but I'll take any chance I can get right now. There were many things that Todoroki didn't like about this situation, and he decided not to voice them just yet. She was safe and happy. That was enough for him right now. Getting off the topic quickly, Amari recalled what her brother said back in the hallway and became curious. So, Katsuki mentioned that you said something a little while ago, but he won't tell me what it was. Todoroki remembered the conversation very well, now looking dejected. Well, I told him everything you told me. He watched Amari's eyes turn into one of pure terror, then, taking a step forward in anxiety, You did what? Glancing to the side, he just answered back plainly. He deserved to know everything you've done for him. She felt her own breathing pick up, then shaking her head aggressively. This couldn't be happening. She didn't want Katsuki to know how hard she worked. What? Why? I thought we were friends. Why would you do that? Taking a step closer, she could feel the intensity in his eyes, desperately trying to get her to understand. I did it because we are friends. Amari ran her fingers through her hair in frustration, not knowing how to process this. But I didn't want him to know. Now he's going to laugh at me and pity me and ignore me even more now, and She stopped when Todoroki put a hand on her shoulder, now feeling her warm in his palm and calming her down at once. He won't. Shaking her head once, Amari sighed. You don't know that. But Todoroki answered just as quickly, confidence now in his voice. Bakugo wouldn't have acted so distressed if he didn't care about her. But he had seen it in small glimpses from time to time. He wasn't sure there was something there. He was sure there was something there. Just keep being yourself. Then he will understand. Amari hung her head in shame, and that, quickly realizing something. I want to be mad at you, but I just can't. You're the only friend I have. Todoroki found her words amusing, just picking up his bag carefully. Then don't. She smirked at that, noticing the playful tone in his voice. Whoa, is that sass I hear? I didn't know the great Shoto Todoroki was capable of that. Shrugging his shoulders, the boy just replied plainly, Take it how you wish. Amari just smiled, and nodding her head, giving up on the idea of hating him. She couldn't do that, even if she tried. She could figure out the whole Katsuki thing later. Oh, you're good. Fine, I give up. Todoroki just nodded his head at that, already heading for the door. Are you ready? Grabbing her own bag off the table, Amari agreed and followed him out the door. She missed walking next to him like this. He always made her feel calm. Amari was thankful she had him. They almost reached the gates when they noticed a couple students still lingering and talking in the courtyard, sometimes glancing in the direction of the two and smiling, although Amari and Todoroki couldn't ever understand what that meant. Moving towards the exit, Amari stopped when she noticed a familiar head of blonde leaning against the gate, almost like he was waiting for someone. She moved up to him in question as Bakugo caught her eye. Hey, brat! Looking rather confused, she called out to him. Hey, what's up? Bakugo stopped for a moment, noticing Todoroki staring at him, silently saying to not do anything stupid. This started to make him pissed off, ignoring the bastard altogether. He wasn't here for him anyway. Then Katsuki reached into his back pocket before taking out a small piece of paper and shoving it into his sister's chest aggressively. Here, just take it. Looking rather confused, Amari carefully opened the paper and couldn't help but gasp at the contents. It almost didn't seem real, and she didn't know what to do with the newfound information. Wait, this is your address? Nodding his head, Katsuki scoffed. Yeah. Of course, that didn't answer her question in the slightest. Pushing further, why are you giving me your address? I know where you live already. Not wanting to come out and say it, especially with that half-and-half bastard here, his answer was a bit more aggressive than he wanted it to be. It's your address, too. Amari let the words process in her mind, not knowing what he was trying to say. What? That's when Katsuki had enough, balling his fists in anger and shouting at her, gaining the entire school's attention. God, do I have to spell it out for you? You can stay there. I figured I already have to see you at school, so what's the difference in seeing you at home also? She stood there silent for a few moments, now realizing what he was trying to do. Was it really possible? Was he really saying that they could live together? That he didn't hate the idea? It was overwhelming to her. Testing the words on her tongue, Amari started out, I can live with you? Katsuki shook his head, thinking this was taking way too long than it needed. Didn't I just say that, stupid? Now hurry up and take it before I change my mind. Ridiculous. Just wait. At his words, Bakugo then watched as silent tears welled up in his sister's eyes before pouring out on the sides in a single line. She was still remaining still, though, almost as if she couldn't believe what he was saying. Bakugo's eyes widened at that. What are you? Amari then realized her tears, brushing them away, as the other students couldn't help but notice the scene. Denki called out to him in a teasing manner. That's not very nice, Bakugo, making your sister cry. At those words, Katsuki turned around and shouted angrily, Shut up! It's not going to be very nice when I shove my foot up your ass. Just forget it already. If you don't want to, brat, you don't have to cry about it. But Amari just shook her head, reaching forward and grabbing his arm. No, I want to. I really want to. Sorry, I'm just so happy. Bakugo didn't know how to take the response, so he decided to brush it off, not wanting to recognize that what Icy Hot said might have been true. She seemed so happy about the stupidest things. Fine, just don't touch me. She let her hand go then and watched him walk away silently, still reeling from what had just happened. Was this really possible? She didn't have to be alone. They could live together. It was like a dream come true. Season 2, Chapter 2. Reaching her parents' house, Amari couldn't help but feel an overwhelming anxiety about this whole thing. When she called her mom about moving and everything, it just didn't seem real. She was honestly freaking out. She grasped her overnight bag tightly as she tried to remember everything she packed for the next couple days. Because it was so last minute, Amari had decided to move all her stuff later and just bring a few things from her apartment. Besides, she wasn't sure if Katsuki was going to change his mind. It was better not to hope for anything too much right now. Amari saw the gates in the distance and froze, now feeling her anxiety skyrocket from 10 to about 100. She had only been in that house a couple times after all. Usually she was just in the hospital as a kid. The whole thing felt strange. Letting her fear get the best of her, Amari began pacing back and forth past the house, trying to build up the courage to actually go inside. She realized, probably looking like an idiot, but doing this was a huge step. She couldn't mess it up. She nodded her head slowly and began talking out loud, trying to hype herself up. Okay, you can do this, Amari. It's just a house, and they're your family. Katsuki said you could stay, so it will be fine, right? Yeah, it'll be fine. Just then, a voice next to her made her stop talking. Now, instead, looking at her brother's annoyed expression. Wait, how long had he been there? What are you even doing? You look like a damn stalker. Jumping back a couple feet, Amari gasped. Ah! Katsuki, oh hey, what are you doing here? Although he just looked at her plainly. I live here. I've also been watching you act like an idiot for the last 10 minutes. So are you going to come in, or are you going to stand there all day? Realizing that he had seen her pace back and forth, Amari's face grew in embarrassment, quickly grabbing her bag and laughing. Oh yeah, I'm coming. Sorry. Bakugo just rolled his his eyes at her spazzy attitude and chose to ignore it. Now turning around to go back into the house, he was going to wait for her to come up to the door, but watching her stand outside and doing nothing for so long was making him pissed off. He slammed the door as Amari followed behind him, seeming really nervous as she took off her shoes in the foyer, muttering softly, "Pardon my intrusion." At the sound, they heard their mother's voice echo back, clearly not amused. "Katsuki, did you just slam the damn door again?" Bakugo groaned as their mother appeared in the doorway, ready to yell at him when she caught Amari's eye, now changing her personality completely and smiling. "Amari, sweetie, welcome home." The mother ran up to the small girl before wrapping her arms around Amari, squeezing the life out of her while speaking. "It's been too long since you've come over. We missed you, especially Katsuki. I was so happy to hear you wanted to live here again." At his name, Bakugo's eyes widened, shouting back, "Stop making up things, you old hag. I didn't say anything like that." But the woman just frowned, still not letting go of the girl. "Just ignore him. I can tell he missed you." "I know, I did." Amari just smiled awkwardly at her mother, finally left her alone, clapping her hands in excitement. "Oh, I wanted to ask, what did you want for dinner tonight? It's your first night home, so it's your choice." Glancing back to Katsuki, she really didn't want to make that kind of decision. Just being here was already making her freak out. The last thing she wanted was to ruin this. It doesn't really matter. I'm sure whatever you make will be great." Her mother lit up at that, nodding her head excitedly. "All right, it will be a surprise then. How does that sound?" Amari just smiled at that, knowing she didn't have to choose anymore. "Sounds great, Mom." Clapping happily, she seemed fine with that before turning to Katsuki. Amari then watched her attitude change once again, this time being way more aggressive. "Katsuki, you better be nice to your sister." Bakugo put his hands out in response, now clearly annoyed. He was literally just standing there, not saying anything. He wasn't even doing anything. Whatever. His mother then gave him a warning look before hurrying off back to the kitchen, leaving the two siblings alone in the same awkward space. Amari looked around before putting a hand to her neck, trying to lighten the situation. "Well, she hasn't changed." Katsuki groaned at that, rolling his eyes. "Yeah, she's still damn annoying. I can't even get a break." Laughing at that, Katsuki turned around to go upstairs, only to find that Amari was still standing in the foyer. What was she even doing? "Are you just going to stand there all day, or what, brat?" Amari jumped slightly and began looking around, not sure what she was doing. Being here felt so weird. "Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm just not used to this. Not really sure what I should be doing, I guess." Bakugo raised his brow at this. It was a house, not a damn amusement park. It wasn't that complicated. "Do whatever you want. I don't care." Nodding her head, Amari took a step closer inside. "Right, sorry." He tried to ignore her, but Bakugo couldn't help but notice her nervous demeanor, getting him even more frustrated. "Would you stop apologizing? It's pissing me off." Letting her eyes fall, Amari answered back right away, without realizing what it actually was. She was messing it up. She needed to pull it together. Sorry." Bakugo groaned at this, stomping down the steps to meet her eyes. Well, he would have if their height was the same. In actuality, she only reached to his shoulders. "Alright, what the hell is wrong with you? You've been acting like an idiot this entire time. I mean, more so than usual." At the sound of her being called out, Amari broke away from his eyes, hugging her arms slowly in response. She guessed it was pretty obvious that she was uncomfortable. Letting out a heavy sigh, Amari looked around at the place that was so foreign to her. "Sorry, I guess I'm just nervous. I never thought you'd want me to stay with you, so I don't want to do anything to mess it up." Bakugo processed her words and immediately felt terrible for being so annoyed with her. This was supposed to be her house too, and yet she was that uncomfortable about it? Did she really think that he would kick her out after he just agreed? Running his fingers through his hair, Katsuki shook his head and lowered his voice just slightly, the anger now completely gone. "You can just do whatever you want. I already said you could stay here, so I'm not going to change my mind, okay? Stop looking so goddamn nervous and relax already, will ya?" Amari remained silent for a moment before nodding her head slowly in acceptance, although still not completely believing it. Katsuki saw this and groaned, ripping her bag out of her hands and throwing it to the sofa in a heavy thud. "Good, now sit down and watch TV or something. I don't care. Just don't bother me anymore." Then she watched him turn around and stomp up the stairs, slamming the door to his room, which caused their mother to yell once more. "Katsuki, if you slam that door one more time, Then I am going to go up there and remove it so you won't have one. Bakugo yelled something back, but all Amari could focus on was the sound of loud, bustling household smiling softly in the process. This was her home. Once they were finished with dinner, it was almost time for bed. Katsuki liked to sleep early, 8:30 p.m. to be exact, which meant she would have to go get ready as well. Clearing the plates in the sink, their mother, pointing to a pile of sheets in the corner, exclaimed, "Alright, since your room isn't completely finished yet, you can just sleep in Katsuki's until then. He'll take the sofa." At her words, Bakugo dropped the plate he had been holding, it now shattering against the ground while he shouted, "What? Hold on, there's no way in hell I'm sleeping out here. Make her do it." But the woman only frowned. "She just moved in. I'm not going to force your sister to sleep on the sofa. Just suck it up already and do it." Bakugo's brow ticked in annoyance at that. This woman was always deciding things on her own. "Screw you, I'm not doing it. If she wants to stay here so badly, then she'll have to sleep on the sofa. I'm not giving up my room for this brat." Throwing the towel on the counter, his mother gasped, "You take that back right now, Katsuki Bakugo." Amari could tell things were getting heated, and the last thing she wanted was a fight over her. So instead, she put her arms out in defense. "I really don't mind taking the sofa tonight, Mom. It's not a big deal." Her head turned around, and Bakugo watched her attitude take a 180, now putting an understanding arm on her daughter. "Are you sure, sweetie? I don't want you to be uncomfortable." Bakugo just scoffed at that. "See? She's fine with it. Conversation over." The woman glared back as Amari answered in reply. "Yeah, it's okay. Katsuki shouldn't have to give up his room for me. I did kind of come in last minute and everything. Just being here is enough for me. I don't need anything special." Bakugo's eyes fell at her words, now feeling slightly bad as he watched his mother hug her tightly again. "Oh, my sweet girl, you are welcome any time. We are your family after all. If you are really okay with it, then I won't push." Whipping her head towards her son, she just hissed back, "You're lucky, Katsuki. Why can't you be as understanding as your sister?" Bakugo rolled his eyes at this and just walked away without another word, clearly done with the conversation. He always hated how different their mom treated the two of them. Once he was gone, her mom turned to her, placing an understanding hand on her shoulder. "How are you doing, by the way? I hope Katsuki has been treating you well. If not, please tell me. I'll make sure he does." Thinking back to all the times her brother had snapped at her, Amari couldn't help but laugh slightly. If she told her about their arguments, then their mother might very well kill him. Lying instead was the best option. "He's been fine, Mom. It's just hard when we haven't spent much time together, I guess." Her mother seemed to understand completely, looking at her with sad eyes. "I know, sweetie, but now you can get to know each other a bit more. Maybe you can help him not act like such a dumbass." At her words, a loud shout echoed from upstairs. "I heard that, you witch!" But her mother just shook her head. "See, he's stubborn, but a good kid. I'm sure you two can grow closer. You're technically twins after all. You just have to give it some time, since he's so damn dense." Amari couldn't help but smile at that, knowing that her mother was probably right. Growing closer to her brother wasn't going to happen overnight. She just needed to keep working at it. Wrapping her arms around her daughter again, her mother just smiled back, missing the feeling of holding her. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here, Amari. It wasn't home without you." Katsuki was standing in a pool of endless darkness. He looked left and right, but still found nothing around him. How did he even get there? He wasn't sure. Suddenly, the same blue-haired man from the USJ attack appeared in front of him, looking rather amused with his fear. "I thought you were supposed to be the #1 hero. What a letdown." He threw his arms out in an attack, and Katsuki readied his quirk, knowing he had to fight. But there was only one problem. Looking down at his hands, Bakugo couldn't help but gasp, realizing that his quirk wasn't materializing for some reason. Bakugo started to panic then, throwing his hands up to block the attack when a swirl of black moved in front of him, blocking the boy from the impact. He opened his eyes slightly, now froze with a terrible sense of dread in his stomach. Standing in front of him was Amari, her body shielding him from the villain who had now disintegrated a hole in her stomach. She coughed out a thick stream of blood, staring at him with a piercing expression. "I broke myself down for you, and you just threw me away. And now look, Katsuki, I'm dead because of you. How funny." He watched as her eyes grew distant, falling in front of him in a heavy and unpleasant thud. Now unmoving at his feet, a ring of terror escaped his throat. Falling to his knees, he held his sister in his arms, crying out broken tears for what he had let happen again. "No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't hate you. Please don't die on me. Please. No." That bastard Icy Hot's voice whispered in his ear then, leaning down to see the destruction he had caused. "It's your fault, you know. You did this, and now she'll die thinking you never cared." Shaking his head aggressively, Katsuki hugged his sister's body in desperation, choking out a heavy sob at what he had done. He was too stupid to realize that he had hurt her, and now she'll never know that he cared. Bakugo closed his eyes in pain before looking up at the sky and cursing with everything he had, letting his own devastation and shame fill his entire body. Reaching a hand up, Bakugo gasped when he snapped open his eyes, now alone in his room. It was still dark outside, and he was dripping in sweat. He dropped his head in his hands, letting out a shaky breath, and tried to calm himself down. Bakugo had always had these nightmares from time to time, but now it hit him different, knowing that something like that had actually happened to him. Truthfully, he hadn't slept very well after the USJ attack, always just picturing his sister tripping in blood and collapsing to protect him. It was pathetic. He didn't need his weak kid sister to help him like that. At that moment, he didn't know why, but Katsuki needed to see her, to know that she was alright, and that all this was just a nightmare, not reality. He carefully descended the steps only to find her in the living room. Amari's leg was thrown off the side in an uncomfortable fashion while her blanket was on the floor. She didn't really look comfortable. Falling to the floor, he watched her sleep, now feeling relieved to know that she was okay. He didn't want her to risk herself like that for him anymore. Instead, Bakugo promised himself that he would protect her instead. That's what he thought he was always doing, but apparently it turned out that he was just trying to run away from his problems and mistakes, Amari being the biggest one he had. He stopped thinking when Amari groaned in her sleep, turning to the side and frowning. Katsuki couldn't help but stare at this and sigh. She really did look uncomfortable. Idiot. Then he carefully picked her up, letting her head fall onto his shoulder as Katsuki ascended the stairs to his room and threw open the door. Laying her down on his bed, Bakugo flung the covers onto her before grumbling to himself and stomping back downstairs to the sofa. That brat was going to make him go crazy. Amari yawned as she rolled over in bed, noticing that the sofa was way more comfortable than she originally thought. That was strange. Opening her eyes, she stopped herself when she realized she wasn't in the living room anymore, but Katsuki's room. She gasped as she sat up, obviously confused about how she had gotten there. The only time she usually had memory loss was when she drank. This was certainly new. Suddenly, the door slammed open and Bakugo stomped inside, a toothbrush now hanging out of his mouth. "Hey, brat, Mom said you're going to be late if you don't get your ass up." Amari blinked once, trying to process if this was reality or not. "Wait, how did I get here? I thought I slept on the sofa." Katsuki froze for a moment before rolling his eyes, a hint of frustration in his voice. "You freaking sleepwalked into my bed, that's what. The only reason I didn't kick your ass was because I was tired, so you better watch yourself next time, brat." Narrowing her eyes in confusion, Amari thought about her past sleeping history. Never had she ever sleptwalked before. Maybe it was a new thing. She did used to live alone after all. Who knows what she could have done before. She gasped at his explanation, throwing her hands up in an aggressive apology. He must really hate it. He must have really hated her now. "I'm so sorry, I didn't even know I did that." But Bakugo just coughed in response, taking the toothbrush out of his mouth. She had bought his excuse. Good. Save it. It's over now, so just forget it. Now hurry up and get ready before I leave you. He then turned away from her, and Amari jumped out of bed before grabbing her things one by one. Was this what a home felt like? She kind of liked it. That was precious. Okay, I'm gonna stop here, because I'd like sleep before school tomorrow. I got tests to do. Check her out. She's a good writer. I like her stuff. Don't put that there. Yep. Okay. You will hear me in the next video. Bye-bye.